he loves you, why does he ignore you? Why does he vanish when you need him the most? Why does he pull away the moment you get closer? Let me tell you this straight. Love doesn't hide. Love doesn't vanish. Love doesn't confuse you. So stop romanticizing emotional neglect. Because girl, if a man truly loves you, he doesn't ignore you. He chooses you. Over and over. Loudly. Proudly. Publicly. Let's break the illusion today. Love is clarity, not confusion. If you constantly find yourself overthinking, replaying conversations, and decoding one-word replies like it's a puzzle, that's not love. It's anxiety. Real love doesn't leave you second-guessing your worth. It doesn't come wrapped in mixed signals or silent treatments. It doesn't make you wonder whether you matter. Real love feels like a deep breath, not a panic attack. And if you've ever been in that kind of space, you know exactly what I mean. A woman shouldn't have to lose sleep wondering why he's distant. She shouldn't have to question her place in his life every time he ghosts her after an argument. That isn't mystery. That's emotional starvation. Love isn't supposed to drain you. It's supposed to build you. It's supposed to be the place where you finally rest, not constantly perform. Imagine a girl getting dressed, rehearsing texts, walking on eggshells, scared to say too much or too little. And for what? To keep the attention of a man who vanishes like a ghost whenever she needs his presence the most? That is not romantic. That is not powerful. That is exhausting. You know what's beautiful? When a man is clear. When he doesn't make you beg for reassurance. When he says, I'm not going anywhere, and means it. When his actions don't contradict his words. When he doesn't vanish when life gets real. Think about it. When someone truly values you, do they ignore you? Do they keep you waiting for hours or days while you sit there convincing yourself that maybe he's just busy? No. Because being busy doesn't mean being silent. Being a man doesn't mean being distant. Clarity means choosing you loudly, not occasionally. Let me tell you about Maya. A girl who spent 2 years with a guy who kept her guessing. She called it passion. She told her friends, he's just not good with emotions. But every time she cried, he left. Every time she got too close, he disappeared. One day, she asked him, do you love me? And he said, you should know that by now. But here's the thing. If she had to ask, the answer was already no. Love doesn't need to be interpreted. It needs to be felt. Clearly, loudly, confidently. You see, confusion is the enemy of emotional safety. It erodes your self-esteem in tiny daily doses. Every time you don't know where you stand, you shrink a little. Every unanswered text, every cancelled plan, every shift in tone becomes a dagger in your self-worth. That's not love, that's survival. And you were not born to survive a relationship. You were born to thrive in one. A woman who is loved properly walks differently. She speaks differently. She doesn't over-explain. She doesn't overthink. Because she's not trying to convince anyone to choose her. She knows she's already chosen. Look at the power of clarity in small daily actions. A man who loves you doesn't leave you on read. He replies. He listens. He doesn't say, let's hang out sometime. He says, Friday, 7 p.m., I'm picking you up. He doesn't say, I'll try, you try. He says, count on me. Clarity isn't grand gestures and poetry. It's consistency. It's showing up when it matters. It's calling when he says he will. It's fighting for the connection instead of hiding from it. So ask yourself, does his love calm your soul or ignite your fears? Do you feel secure or on edge? If you're constantly anxious, constantly unsure, constantly trying to convince yourself, maybe this is just how he loves. No, it's not. Because real love brings peace. And peace isn't boring. Peace is sacred. Peace is powerful. Peace is where love lives. Silence isn't sexy, it's a red flag. Let's stop pretending that someone pulling away from you is somehow romantic. That him going quiet for hours or days is some kind of mysterious masculine energy. It's not. It's emotional neglect dressed up as maturity. When someone loves you, they don't leave you wondering. They don't disappear and call it space. They don't go quiet and call it strength. That's not love. That's avoidance. Imagine you text someone you're in love with, vulnerable, maybe even emotional, and hours pass, then a day, no reply. You stare at your phone. You second guess everything you said. You replay the message 50 times. You even start blaming yourself. Maybe I came off too strong. Maybe he's just stressed. Maybe he needs time. And in all these maybes, you slowly start abandoning your own emotional needs. That's the trap. That's the manipulation. You begin to normalize the silence. You begin to romanticize the distance. But the truth is, someone who truly values you doesn't go quiet when you need their voice the most. Look around. The world is filled with women sitting by their phones, aching for a response, calling it love. But love isn't waiting for breadcrumbs. Love is when he can't sleep knowing you're hurting. Love is when he calls just to hear your voice and check if you're okay. Love doesn't hide behind excuses. Love shows up, speaks up, and holds space. And silence? Silence when you're hurting? That's violence in disguise. Take a moment to think about any strong woman you know. Maybe your mother. Maybe your best friend. Maybe you. What breaks them down the fastest? Silence. Emotional absence. When their words are met with nothing. Because silence makes you feel invisible. It tells you that your feelings are not worth acknowledging. That your voice doesn't matter. That you can scream in a relationship and still hear only your echo. And no one deserves to feel like that. Remember that couple from your office? The ones that seemed perfect? He'd post her picture on Instagram, write sweet captions, but in real life he'd go silent on her for 2 or 3 days after every disagreement. And she called it space. She called it him needing time. But over time, she stopped expressing herself. She feared his silence more than she feared confrontation. And what's left of her now? A version of herself that stays quiet to avoid being ignored. That's not love. That's fear management. Or that college girl who fell in love with a guy who needed time to think every time things got serious. His silence came not from love, but from his inability to commit. She cried in her dorm at night, holding her phone, hoping he'd reply, watching his online status turn green and gray again and again. But he never replied. She blamed herself, not realizing his silence wasn't an absence of words, it was an absence of love. Silence isn't patience. Silence isn't respect. Silence, when used to punish, confuse, or manipulate, is a red flag. Real men don't play games with your emotions. They don't use silence to assert power. They use their voice to build safety, to build trust, to say, even when I'm upset, I won't shut you out. That's what emotional maturity looks like. You deserve someone who communicates. Someone who says, I'm upset, but I'm here. Someone who doesn't hide when things get hard. Because when someone loves you, their first instinct is to talk it out, not to disappear. Their love is louder than their pride. Their commitment stronger than their silence. Ignoring you is not love, it's emotional manipulation. Let that sink in. When someone chooses to ignore your messages, your pain, your presence, that's not passion. That's not space. That's not some twisted version of tough love. That is control. It's someone playing God with your emotions, deciding when you're worthy of attention and when you're not. That's not what love looks like. That's what emotional power games look like. Imagine being in a room with someone you care about, and the moment you open your heart, they shut down. They turn away. They say nothing. And that silence, it's louder than a scream. It tells you everything without saying a word. You're too much. You feel too much. You ask for too much. And slowly you begin to shrink. You talk less. You stop expressing. You start questioning your worth. That's not love. That's emotional conditioning. Picture this. A girl pours her heart out in a text. She's vulnerable, raw, maybe even crying as she writes it. She hits send. And hours go by. Then a day, 2, and nothing, no reply. But he's posting memes on Instagram, watching stories, hanging out with his friends. And she's spiraling, thinking she did something wrong. But that's the trick. That's what emotional manipulation does. It makes you feel guilty for feeling. It makes you apologize for being human. That silence wasn't just silence, it was a weapon. In relationships, communication is the heartbeat. Ignoring someone you claim to love is like saying, your heart can stop beating for a while. I'll decide when it's time for you to feel alive again. That's cruel. That's calculated. That's control. Because every time he ignores you, you chase, you overcompensate, you try harder, and he says less, gives less, does less. And suddenly, you're the one doing all the emotional labor, carrying a relationship built on imbalance. Think of Priya, a woman who stayed with a man who ignored her for days every time she brought up her needs. He would vanish, block her, ghost her, then come back like nothing happened. She mistook his return for love. It was control. He wanted her to fear his absence more than she trusted his presence. That's what manipulation looks like. It conditions you to beg for the bare minimum and call it affection. Then there's that classic situation you see everywhere. Couples fighting and one of them storms off, doesn't speak for days, and expects things to magically go back to normal. But love isn't a switch you flip. You can't turn it off when it's inconvenient. You can't freeze someone out and still expect warmth when you're ready to thaw. Ignoring is not a break. It's a form of punishment. A tactic to make the other person feel powerless. It's not love. It's ego in disguise. What makes it worse is that many women are taught to tolerate this, to be understanding, to wait, to give him time. But time doesn't fix silence. Effort does. Words do. Intention does. You can't build a connection on top of cold shoulders and unanswered calls. Real love doesn't leave you on red. It doesn't mute your voice. It doesn't ghost you every time you speak your truth. When someone truly cares, they don't weaponize silence. They don't ignore you to win arguments. They don't make you earn their attention like it's a prize. They don't vanish until you break down, then show up just in time to play the hero. That cycle is toxic. It's designed to make you doubt yourself, to keep you dependent on their crumbs of affection. But love isn't supposed to feel like starvation. It's supposed to feel like nourishment. You deserve someone who listens when you speak, who leans in when you're vulnerable, who doesn't use silence as a sword, but as a moment of peace between two people who care enough to come back to each other with honesty. Because when someone loves you, they don't disappear. They stay, they speak, and they try. A man in love shows up. He doesn't leave you waiting. He doesn't leave your messages on scene. He doesn't go missing for days just to keep you on your toes. When a man's heart is truly invested in you, he will move mountains just to stand beside you. He doesn't need reminders, warnings, or ultimatums. Because when love is real, effort is automatic. He treats you like a guest. He treats you like a brother. He treats you like a son. He doesn't treat you like a daughter. He treats you like a guest. He treats you like a neighbor. He treats you like a son. He doesn't treat you like an older clock. He treats you like an older. And when a man is in love, showing up isn't a task. It's a desire, a calling. Think about this. When someone is passionate about a job, they show up early, stay late, give more than what's asked. Why? Because they care. The same principle applies in love. A man who loves you will show up when you're sick, when you're anxious, when you're quiet and trying to hold yourself together. He doesn't vanish when life gets messy. He steps into the mess with you. He wants to be part of your storm, not just your sunshine. That's the difference between a lover and a tourist. Take the story of Sana, a woman who once dated a man who always had excuses. Too busy, too tired, too stressed. He'd cancel plans last minute, avoid real conversations, and never initiate anything. But she made excuses for him. He's just going through a lot, she'd say. Until one day, she got sick. Hospital sick. And he didn't even visit. Didn't call. Didn't show up. And in that moment, she realized, love without presence is just a performance. You can't build a forever with someone who disappears when you need them most. Contrast that with another story. Alina, after a terrible week at work, broke down in tears during a call with her partner. No long explanations, no dramatic monologue, just quiet sobs. Within 30 minutes, he was at her door with food, her favorite drink, and the words, "I didn't know what to say, but I knew I had to be here." That's love. That's what showing up looks like. It's not about perfect words or grand gestures. It's about presence, commitment, the willingness to stand by her even when you don't have all the answers. A man in love will remember the little things, not because he's trying to impress you, but because he listens. He pays attention. He values what matters to you. He remembers your coffee order, the name of your childhood pet, the date of your job interview. He remembers because he cares. And showing up isn't always about physically being there. It's in the texts that say good luck today. It's in the voice notes that say I'm proud of you. It's in the consistent energy that says you're never alone in this. You see, presence is love's loudest language. A man may say he loves you, but if his actions whisper otherwise, the words are meaningless. When he's in love, he doesn't wait for you to beg. He anticipates. He initiates. He makes sure you know that no matter how tough life gets, he's there. Not just when it's easy, not just when you're glowing and smiling, but when you're exhausted, when you're messy, when you're silent and emotionally drained. He doesn't fear your emotions, he embraces them. He doesn't back away from your strength, he respects it. He doesn't just show up to win you, he shows up to keep you. Because that's what grown love looks like. It's not found in flowers and filters. It's found in the late night talks, the rides to the doctor, the times he puts your needs above his comfort. And the man who truly loves you, he won't be perfect, but he'll be present. He'll be real. He'll show up and he'll stay. Stop accepting crumbs and calling it cake. You weren't born to beg for the bare minimum and call it love. You weren't made to survive on good morning texts after 3 days of silence, or on compliments that only show up when you threaten to walk away, or on affection that's conditional when you look good, when you behave right, when you keep quiet. That's not a relationship. That's emotional starvation. And you've convinced yourself it's a feast. Some women are in relationships where they do everything. Initiate every conversation, plan every date, check in every time, while the man gives the occasional smile, the once in a blue moon, I love you, and suddenly he's praised like a king. Why? Because she's been conditioned to believe that anything is better than nothing. But that's the lie. Crumbs only feel like cake when you're starving. When you've gone too long without feeling fully seen, fully heard, fully loved. Imagine someone baking a cake. It takes effort, ingredients, attention, patience, care. But what if someone threw a few sugar grains on a plate and said, "Here, enjoy"? Would you call that dessert? Would you say you're satisfied? Then why are you calling his inconsistency effort? Why are you calling his hot and cold energy passion? Why are you convincing yourself that a breadcrumb is enough to feed your heart? Why are you calling yourself inconsistency healthy food? Hot. Think of Aisha. Every time she brought up her needs, he'd go silent. But then he'd come back with a cute emoji or a flirty message, and she'd melt, thinking he does care. But that's how crumbs work. They trick you into believing you're being fed when really you're just being controlled. A true partner doesn't give you just enough to keep you hooked. He gives you more than enough so you never have to doubt. Or take the story of Zara, who dated a man that never introduced her to his family, never made their relationship public, never prioritized her in real life. But every now and then, he'd buy her flowers or post a cute story. And she clung to those moments like they were proof. But deep down, she knew. The moments were small, but the neglect was massive. She was eating crumbs and calling it a cake buffet. Love is not something you should have to earn in pieces. You are not a scavenger of affection. You are a woman worthy of a full course experience, of consistent care, of intentional love. When you settle for less, you teach your heart that crumbs are enough. And the more you do that, the harder it becomes to even recognize what real love looks like when it finally comes along. We need to stop glorifying minimal effort. A text after 2 days of silence is not effort, it's bait. A last-minute invite at 11 p.m. is not romance, it's convenience. You know I love you after a week of distance is not reassurance, it's manipulation. You don't have to tolerate emotional fasting just to say you have someone. Your worth is not tied to how well you can survive his absence or how much you can endure in silence. The truth is, the more you accept less, the more they'll give you less. Because people rise or fall to the standards you set. If you tolerate crumbs, they'll stop baking altogether. But when you step away from the table that only serves scraps, you make space for a feast. You make space for someone who sees you, chooses you, and feeds your soul. Not with crumbs, but with consistency, depth, and love that doesn't require begging. If he keeps you waiting, he's already chosen his priority, and it's not you. If he keeps you waiting, He's already chosen his priority, and it's not you. Let's stop pretending that delayed love is real love. Let's stop romanticizing almost someday and not right now. Because when a man truly wants you, he doesn't make you feel like a pending notification. He doesn't put you on pause while he lives fully for everything and everyone else. A man who values you doesn't make you wait for his attention, his affection, or his decision. Time is not the issue. How does he live? What his priorities are? Everyone is busy. Everyone has stress. Everyone has things going on. But people make time for what they truly care about. That's the law of life. If he can spend hours scrolling on his phone, playing games, hanging with friends, but can't respond to your message, that's not a lack of time. It's a lack of interest. If he can plan nights out, travel with the boys, binge Netflix, but can't take 10 minutes to call and check on you, that's not being busy. That's being dismissive. When someone cares, they don't leave you in limbo. They don't make you feel like you're always waiting in line behind everything else in their life. Think about Meera, who dated a man who always said, "Soon I'll be ready, just give me time." She waited through his job changes, family drama, mood swings, and emotional breakdowns. She held space, she stayed patient, but years passed and soon never came. He never made her a priority. She was a bookmark in his life, a constant comfort he never committed to. And the worst part? She kept believing he was just healing. But he wasn't healing. He was holding her as an emotional placeholder until something else fit better. That's not love. That's selfishness painted in sympathy. Or look at Reena, who kept getting last-minute plans, flaky responses, and vague promises. He'd say, "I'll try to make it," or "let's see how I feel," or the classic, "I'm just not good at planning." But every time his favorite band came to town or a party popped up, he had no trouble making plans then. That's the truth. People don't forget to show up for what matters to them. They forget to show up for what they know they can get away with. Let's be clear. Waiting becomes a prison when there's no intention behind it. If he keeps you waiting to reply, waiting to commit, waiting for clarity, waiting for love, he's not confused. He's comfortable. Comfortable knowing that you'll stay while he figures out what version of himself he wants to be. But love isn't built on delay. It's built on decision. If he really saw your worth, he wouldn't risk losing you to his indecision. He would act, speak, move. A real man doesn't let the woman he values wait in uncertainty. He doesn't drag his feet while she sits in silence, wondering if she's asking for too much. He doesn't give her half love while saying, "I'm not ready." Readiness isn't about perfect timing. It's about realizing that some people are once in a lifetime, and you don't leave them standing outside the door while you sort your priorities. If he makes you wait for effort, wait for love, wait for respect, wait for answers, then understand this. You're not his priority. You're his convenience. And sometimes the hardest pill to swallow is this. When he keeps you waiting, he's not hoping you'll stay. He's testing how much you'll tolerate. He's seeing how far he can stretch your patience before you break. But your soul wasn't made for standby mode. You were made to be chosen. Fully, freely, unapologetically. Not eventually, not maybe, but now. Let this be the moment where you stop waiting for someone who's unsure about you. Let this be the last time you let silence define your worth. The final day you make excuses for emotional inconsistency and call it love. Because the truth is, the woman who waits too long for the wrong man ends up forgetting how to open the door when the right one finally knocks. You are not here to chase affection, beg for attention, or water dead plants, hoping they will bloom. You are here to be loved loudly, chosen clearly, and held with certainty. You are not hard to love. You are just asking to be loved properly. And that threatens the boys who only learned how to hold temporary things. Don't let their inability to love you the way you deserve become the mirror in which you see your reflection. You are not the absence of the love you didn't receive. You are the abundance of love you were born to give and meant to attract. And when someone ignores that, when someone makes you feel invisible, confused, or unwanted, you don't shrink. You don't explain harder. You don't beg. You walk. If a man loves you, truly loves you, he will not play with your emotions like a game of chess. He will not make you question your own mind, your own worth, or your own strength. He will not disappear in silence, hoping you'll chase him. Love is not hide and seek. It's not a performance. It's presence. It's accountability. It's commitment that doesn't need a calendar to show up. And if he can't give you that, then you are better off walking through fire alone than sitting in cold silence next to someone who only warms up when he feels like it. You are not an option. You are not a maybe. You are not someone who gets placed on pause while he figures himself out. And no, you are not asking for too much. You are asking the wrong person. Remember this. When a man wants you, nothing will keep him away. And when he doesn't, nothing will make him stay. It's not about effort being hard. It's about effort being honest. When it's real, it's felt. Without games, without gaps, without gray zones. Don't hold on to someone who lets go of you every time you need more than they want to give. Don't waste your power proving your worth to someone who can't even show up for the bare minimum. You're not hard to understand. You're not complicated. You're just rare. And rare things aren't put on shelves. They're treasured, protected, fought for. You don't keep diamonds waiting while you figure out if you like rocks. The universe didn't spend years shaping your soul for you to settle for a man who can't even answer a text. God didn't heal your heart just so you could hand it to someone who treats it like a backup plan. You are the storm he didn't prepare for, the fire he thought he could control, the truth he wasn't ready to hear. But your job is not to soften your shine to fit his shadow. Your job is to rise so high in your standards that anyone who isn't ready to show up gets left behind without an apology. So here's the truth. The woman who walks away from being ignored is the woman who finally walks into her power. And the man who let her go, he won't just miss her. He'll realize too late that what he ignored was the very thing he needed. But by then, she'll be gone. Not bitter, not broken, just better. Smiling, glowing, thriving. Because she finally understood that silence isn't love, confusion isn't care, and crumbs are never enough for a woman who knows she's the whole damn cake. Because she finally understood that silence isn't love, confusion isn't care, and crumbs are never enough for a woman who knows she's the whole damn cake. And before we dive into all the details, and before we find out what is for her, you are not here to be remembered. You are here to be unforgettable. Be the woman who makes him realize ignoring you was the biggest mistake he ever made. Because queens don't chase. They choose. And now, it's your turn to choose you.